Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Now, each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by a remarkable guest, Luca Zambello, CEO and founder at Jurny. Hello, Luca. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Barry. Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We know you're very busy and we do appreciate you talking to us. And for anyone who doesn't know who you are and the company that you work at, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was originally born and raised in Italy, but I lived basically half of my life in the United States, specifically Southern California, LA, and I've been in the tech space and hospitality industry for about 15 years, a combination of both. And then most recently, we launched Jurny, spelled Jurny. And we took the experience of being like property managers. More specifically, we were more on the boutique hotels and Airbnb space, kind of like the combination of both. And we realized that there was so many inefficiency in the space, and a lot could be automated. And we saw pretty early on the rise of AI as one of the big tools, and then the complete lack of what we believe is infrastructure for these technologies to thrive. And so we really focus on building that infrastructure and then building solutions to allow property managers, also not just for Airbnbs and boutique hotels, but also large chain hotels, to automate as much as possible in their operations, day-to-day guest management, and not just automate, but also elevate the experiences and become an enhancer of what they're set to do in the first place, right?
That's really interesting. And we will get into the details, but just before we do, I just want to talk a little bit about your earlier self. So firstly, this isn't your first success, is it? And you've already been successful in other fields. Can you just tell us a little bit about your previous successes before we talk about Jurny?
Sure. Well, I've kind of been entrepreneurial my whole life. I since pretty early on, like I love to solve problems. So I guess like wanting to solve problem is a good skill to have when you want to be an entrepreneur. And I always had a hard time thinking myself having a job and working for someone. In fact, I never did. So I first started more on the event space, even in Italy, and then a little in the United States. I moved to the US to study. And while I was there, I started working, I guess, a second job more on the basically nightlife space, just to get connections. And I didn't know anybody. I wanted to also, I didn't speak almost any English back
Oh, wow.
then.
Well done. Congratulations. Yeah.
Very basic, yeah. And so that was the best way to. And one of the things I notice every time, like when people go into different countries, that they don't get mixed with the local culture. And the first thing I did, I said, like, I don't want to hang out with anybody that is Italian. Every time I heard somebody talking Italian, I would just like walk the other way. Not because I don't like Italians, because I wanted to get immersed in the culture and really start creating a local network, because I, again, didn't know anybody. And then from there, I found an opportunity. This was like 2011 now. So early Airbnb, or I think Airbnb just launched, so it wasn't yet a platform. And there was very little online to basically book, especially homes, luxury homes. In LA, it's full of luxury homes. There's a bunch of people that they were trying to rent luxury homes, which I found out through the previous job that I had. And then basically I saw the opportunity, and I said, let me see what happens if I buy a domain, houserentalsangeles.com. Literally, that was the domain. might still exist. And then I ran some ads on it. And then 12 months later, we did $1.2 million in
and that was it. You did the American dream, right?
I thought that was I was like, okay, here we go. Money is easy. American dream is easy. But that was the last easy money I made.
Were there any experiences from that time that you've now brought into your current business about things maybe could be a mistake or something that you actually thought, yeah, this has worked really well. I want to do that in Jurny.
I think I learned the biggest lesson they come from failures, not from successes. It's very hard to repeat identical successes, and but what's easier is to take the learning from the failures. And I think the biggest thing that we learn is that when you find something that works, it's just not going to take long, especially if you're in US, for competition to come. And the competition is going to come with more funding than you, and it's going to move faster than you, better talent than you. So if you want to win, you got to move faster than everybody else. That was
No
a big
pressure.
lesson. No pressure. But if you want to do something big and you find something new, because at the time, like we were to give you background still on what we were doing, like we were the only one running online ads, the only one, and there's zero competition. So my ROI on ad spend was insane. And then the year after, it got cut in half, and then the year after got cut in half again. And then there was like, I mean, dozens of companies doing the same, super well-funded companies, including a company called Luxury Treat that then got bought by actually Airbnb. So it was a very good learning experience, you know.
It's a really interesting journey because normally when I speak to CEOs and founders, they usually have their toughest time at the start and then they have it easier later on. But yours is kind of the opposite, right? You had it
It
really
has
easy to
been.
start. Yeah.
Well, nothing is easy, but yes, definitely. But I think it's also like how big, and sometimes you can hit something right, but then you have to be fast. Have to have the experience and the knowledge again to move fast and to leverage that advantage point that you have, because it's not going to last forever. You sleep on it, you're going to be gone.
Yeah, that you snooze, you lose, right? That's the American adage. So when you're looking at this, what was your first problem? So you're thinking, okay, a property management guest experience. What was the problem that you were trying to solve?
Quickly after that business, basically, we realized that we had to pivot into having something that is more defendable. And so what we did, we start moving more and more into actual property management versus like being more of a broker that we were before. And we actually grew that business, very tough business of property management, to 300 units across 5 different cities in US. And even then, for the second time, we found a space where we were trying to move fast, but we couldn't because it's a capital-intensive business. The logistics of the business are very hard, and it was complete lack of proper technology. There is technology, but I say proper technology to make that business scalable and to move fast. So we couldn't move fast. Many people came into the space, and probably heard of many of them, like Casa, Sander. There's many companies that they did similar thing that we did. We also raised capital at the time, like many of those companies, but nobody could move quick enough, or if you move too fast, you didn't have the margin. And very similar actually to, I think, like on a adjacent parallel, I guess, like space, which is the office space where we were, did similar, right? You try to move it. It's not a venture backable business. So the technologies are not there to support your growth and make it scalable. And so I saw that as like a massive opportunity, not just as an opportunity, but also like wanting to resolve a pain point that it was a major pain point for me. And I knew it was a major pain point for everybody else. I know most of these companies, they start a management company with a vision in mind, something they want to do. And then the reality is completely different. And they cannot focus on what they wanted to do in the first place. If it was a lifestyle business, if it was to grow a large brand, they cannot do that because they're get sucked in into the day to day. So I said, as a software company, what I want to promise to myself to do something that other software company didn't do in our space is to actually be the tool to enhance people to do what they want to do in the first place, and to remove the 80-90% of the day-to-day grind that comes with this businesses. And thanks to automations and AI, it's actually possible today, which is kind of amazing.
Oh, Luca, your dream. That was my next question, was AI, and you just integrated that seamlessly, so it makes it look like I'm really listening. So thank you. So in terms of the AI and property management, like how do you balance like the automation with the need for like a personalized guest experience?
So I don't know if you heard. I think it was an MIT study, but it was a recent, pretty famous study that 95% of businesses adopting AI, they fail completely in the AI adoption. And this is a problem we identify very early on. And it's about 3 years ago. And it's a combination of things. Let's start with something even more big. Number one is people think that AI is this magical thing. You're just gonna write something, just make me something good, and then it has to make you good. Like, write me an article, and that has to be good. No, that doesn't work like that. Like, it's very much working. Like, if you start thinking about AI, almost like you have a very intelligent humans that can work for you, but that human, no matter how intelligent it is, doesn't know anything about you, doesn't know anything about your business. So if you don't start thinking in those terms and you cannot give the proper context to this person, it cannot be helpful. It's the same thing with an employee. You can have the smartest person in the world, but if you don't do proper training, proper onboarding, they don't know anything about your industry, how helpful can they be? They're not going to be helpful at all. And so AI is very much the same. Like, you have to really treat it as in, like, okay, it needs to have the context of what we're doing. It needs to be specialized on solving a specific task. So, or that's where everybody hears about AI agents, but what does it really mean? Yes, they can take actions, but I think one important piece that gets missed all the time is these agents need to be specialized at doing one thing only, and they're good at it, just like humans.
Yeah.
So you take these large language models, and then you create different agents that are specialized on doing very specific tasks. You give them the proper knowledge, you give them the proper infrastructure so they can take actions, and then you make them work with one another, and then you have an extremely powerful tool. Extremely powerful. So the reason why you haven't probably seen the impact in the economy yet, which we are seeing it, but not at the broad scale yet, right? And why 95% of businesses are missing the point is, and they're not getting value of it, is specifically because they don't understand this concept yet. And it will evolve, and people will understand, and we will see impact across multiple different industries.
That's a really interesting percentage, 95%. Do you think people are just jumping on the bandwagon? Is there a temptation that people say, oh, AI is really good, it's really popular, let's just do it, regardless of whether it's appropriate for the business or not?
I think there's a combination. There's like hype, and then there's some special that people see, but then what they lack is translating that special into something useful for their business. I think that's the breach, that's the gap that exists today, but exists across most organizations. And I think there's very few organizations that understand that concept really well and can leverage it. And then once they do it, they're killing it.
Do you feel there's like a temptation to over-employ AI, like to have AI do everything that you can possibly get it to do? What's your views on that?
Well, I think my view, okay, so two things to this point. One is, I think most people jump on it because they're, again, the excitement, the hype. They like to translate how, again, to make it useful for them. But the second point, which I think even more interesting, when the people think that AI is just going to do everything for them, right? And the reality is that where AI, at least today, is the most useful is to become an enhancer. So it will not do 100% of your job. This is happening across multiple departments. By the way, we have AI as a tool for within, obviously, our product, and it's a very large component of our product is a combination of multiple things that makes it special. But we also use it internally for our organization. And the same challenges that I see with businesses, I see even within my organizations. And when I try to push this to increase efficiency within inside of my organization, first reaction is hype. We jump on it. Second reaction is our skepticism. Then they go through a third reaction when you're like, push them, like, no, I'm telling you, can really do it. And then when they understand the real value, then they get scared because they're like, holy crap, this is gonna take my job.
Yeah.
And that's usually what happened. But then there's a fourth reaction that I think most people miss, is that when they actually realize that AI by itself, like, wouldn't be able to do 100% of what they are doing. So what I'm saying is, you are getting the busy job away from you, and which by the way, in a weird way, people feel guilty about that. I don't know why. This doesn't happen to me, but I noticed that with a lot of people. They feel guilty, almost like cheating the system that is happening, that this thing is doing all this work for them. But in the reality, you still need that human component. I have a hard time to describe exactly what the human components look like. But in the organization, there is this critical thinking and this like experience and overarching context that AI lacks. And I think there's people say AI can be creative, and I agree-ish, but at the same time, I don't. There is a level of creativity that is very human-like. And what I tell people when they start getting scared is like, hey, listen, this the reality is the AI is going to substitute jobs in one way only, at least for the short term. It's very hard to predict in the extreme and in the long term, but especially within the tech industry is going to substitute the jobs of the people that don't know how to use it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because someone that knows how to use it and leverage it now does 10 times more things than they were doing before. It's a crazy output of productivity. It's a productivity multiplier. Now you do 10 times, 20 times what you were able to do before in the same amount of time. Which means that, translated, is that you're going to create way more companies that exist right now. It means that things that were never going to be profitable in the past to do, now they're going to be profitable. So I have a hard. People sees the doom scenarios, and there's some possibly existing doom. But I have a hard time seeing the doom scenario being the ones that it's going to remove all the jobs. I really do, because it never ever in history, when you increase productivity of any kind, you got less jobs. Elevate lifestyles. Like being a podcaster wasn't a job before. Being a content creator wasn't a job. Like, yes, it was. You could be a content creator, or you had to be in Hollywood. You have to work for some network. Now someone with and why it changed, because now your distribution is a social media, so not a TV network, and now you can use your phone camera to do what needed to be like a full production company before, right? But with astronomical cost. So you increase the efficiency now. There's more people doing more broader things. So, anyways, I could go on for
That's fine. Yes, I could feel the excitement and passion. That's great. I was also wondering, like, in 5 years, I was thinking, like, if you came back on this program in 5 years, would you be eating those words when you said, like, it won't decrease the amount of jobs? So it'll be interesting to see in 5 years' time whether that happens or not.
I have an answer to that. Meaning, like, of course, there's going to be, like, there's some industries that are going to be heavily impacted,
Yeah.
right? Like customer support. But again, I do have an answer to that as well. There's some industry that really there's no hope, and they're large employers of humans, which is like obviously the transportation industry.
Yeah.
And when that's going to come, that's not AI on its own, it's AI and automation. But anyways, that's for sure. That is one of the industry that I have hard, like, those people will need to find a different jobs. But it's also true. My grandpa used to be a farmer. He built one of the first intensive farming farms in Italy, and they had at one point something like 600 people working in the farm. After the Industrial Revolution, there were 9 people doing the same job that those previous.
Yeah. It's
600
crazy
people were
output,
doing.
right?
So
Yeah.
so like, did it mean that all these people end up with nothing to do? No, they moved to different industries that didn't exist before, right?
Yeah.
Was it disruptive at the time? 100% it was. But people quickly adapted, and actually overall wealth in the world went up, right? And if you look at the living conditions of people just 100 years ago, even in the Western civilizations, we're talking about completely different universes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like completely different. People complain today, but I'm like, we live better than kings lived 300-400 years ago, right? Like,
It's crazy, right?
it's crazy. So I think it's all about putting and the second thing I was going to say is, yes, there's going to be job disruptions, but it's very hard for people to think what things can be jobs in the future, right? If I would have asked you during the Industrial Revolution that what the jobs would have been when the internet would have come, or even at the beginning of the dot-com, you wouldn't know,
Yeah.
right? They would tell you like, oh, there's going to be people that are going to be playing games for a living. Sure, be like, shut up. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's obvious now, but it's really not. Wasn't obvious. Like, just That's not that long ago.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm old enough to know those times when you didn't think them. You're probably a little bit younger than me. Well, maybe not a little bit, maybe quite a lot younger than me. But I can definitely remember. No idea about the internet. The internet wasn't a thing when I was a child. Yeah, so handheld phones, that wasn't a thing when I was a child. So the pace of technology is so fast from going back then up to now. So it is crazy. It really is. Going back a little bit back to Journey, because that's why we're here. How do you measure success in a company like Journey? And maybe you can see it from the clients or from your side, or maybe they're both together the same success.
Well, I think for us, success is defined as in we have one, and we are becoming that basically a partner of this company, right? Like once you feel like you're almost in this like joint journey, pun intended, where you don't become just a tool, but you become an enhancer and you allow them to do, again, I always say more of what they want to do in the first place. Grow faster, become more profitable, deliver better guest experiences, increase, optimize revenue for the same room, with like things like dynamic upsells, that utilizes AI to really custom creates offers and custom tailored experiences for guests. Like once you can do that, I mean, and we're already doing it, and I can see where this is going just in a few years, even less than years, it's just months. It's amazing, and it's going to change everything, right? But and ultimately, this is going to ultimate benefit the customer, their customer as well,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
you as a guest, they're going to have better experience. You have less issues to deal with. Like your travel experience is going to be better, and you're going to be paying less because they have less costs to do what they need to do. So it's circle.
So when someone comes to you, let's say I'm a property manager and I want some help from you. So obviously I'm really interested in your product. I see your website looks great. So I come to you. How are you going to help me with the onboarding? How do you help me to make my first steps successful?
Yeah. So obviously it's a complex system ours because I mean I got not much in details on that before, but we manage everything from booking to guest communications, automated obviously guest communication, management of all your entire staff, cleaners, turnarounds, the maintenance, anything that is happening. Basically, we're an entire operating system that instead of basically powering a computer, we're powering an hospitality operation, right? There's like counting taxes, there's guest experiences and so on. And so there's many different layers, and actually the biggest challenge for us, and I think similar company even that they don't have actually any AI components in it, is to have users properly adopt your platform and properly onboard and proper training, because you can do as much training as you want in the first couple of weeks, but then at the end of the day, like the things you told them, they're gonna forget about, right? And I had to keep coming back to AI, but this is where we're actually finding that extremely useful. Where number one, it can benchmarks like performance across multiple different companies. They can say, hey, this is an angle of your business you could really improve. Insane, right? Like it's unheard of in the past. Like because this is amount of data, it's impossible even using algorithm to make sense of, and AI can, right? Now you can keep track of all these different aspects, and we can say, hey, this is you're using less. You should use more of it, and then here's how it can optimize your business with X, Y, Z. That we found that it's the very beginning of that, but that's extremely useful. And then the second part is to actually make the usability of the software much easier. So we already have it, but this is set to be obviously a lot more powerful as this LLM becomes more powerful now. Our infrastructure is developing. It's, for example, voice control, right? Like you can already talk to our software, and it's actually like a user behavior that they need to get, that this is happens in the future, how you're going to manage these things. Um, you have this super complex software. You don't know how to do something. You just talk to the AI. How do I do it? And then AI, or by the way, we just recently implement some new infrastructure and context and data that the AI can learn from everything that is happening, even from our customer success phone calls and stuff like that. Super cool stuff. I'm not getting we're doing it. But now we're at about like 80% of whatever tickets or questions people have and ask to our AI. Our AI 80% of the time solves it without human interaction within our own team. And only about 20% get escalated. So this is already happening where people are having conversation with the software, and the software is either taking the action for them or showing them how to do it, which is pretty crazy.
It's incredible, isn't it? Now, unfortunately, Luca, we are a bit tight for time, so I've only got one more question for you. I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately, time doesn't allow. So you are a very successful CEO, entrepreneur. If someone is looking at this now, feels really inspired by your project and wants to do something similar for themselves, maybe not the same industry, but just being their own co-founder or founder, what piece of advice would be the most important piece of advice that you could give them?
Don't think of it as a sprint, but as a marathon.
So in terms of like, don't rush to do it, don't plan it, don't do it so quickly. Take some time, make sure that you're going to be able to set it up, make sure that you've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. Basically what you're saying, right?
What I'm saying more isn't like if you go in with high expectations, everything is gonna happen. You gotta work hard, but you gotta pace yourself a little bit, right? So maybe if you could give 130% and burn yourself out after 12 months, or if you do 120%, you gotta try to maximize what you can do, but you also have to have long-term thinking. You have to know that there's rare cases in which things happen overnight, but most things don't. It takes a lot of work, and people see the 10 years overnight success a lot, right? So there's 10 years of grind, and then you see like overnight this person just like raising billions and being ultra successful, but it takes time, and just take it as a learning experience. Honestly, anything you do, I want to. Anything you do, you have to take it as a learning experience. That I'm like, think about it as like, okay, I'm getting this PhD in entrepreneurship, and it is actually not costing me money beside my time. If you take everything as a learning experience as well, you will take failures in a much more constructive way, because it has to be failure, and you have to learn from the failures. That's how you become just doing anything on it. Not just
Yeah, I've had a lot of failures in life, so it means that I've learned a lot, right? Right, Luca, I just thank you so much again for taking the time to join with us
Thank
today.
you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was Luca Zambello, CEO and founder at Jurny.